Welcome to Backstage with Becca with special guest, David Socolar. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca. On this episode, this Connecticut College graduate discovered his love for theater at age 14 when he joined choir, and since then has never looked back. He's been in regional productions of shows such as The Full Monty, Just TooBig, Anne of Green Gables, Amazing Grace, Into the Woods, and more. Reopening in October, you can catch him as Dr. Pomatter on the Waitress tour. Please welcome David Socolar. How have you been? It's been a strange time this past year. But
oh my gosh, yeah. It's been a strange time. It's been a crazy time. I've been okay. I managed to sort of find my way through everything and maintain, my health and for the most part, keep plugging along with different little projects and stuff. So I've been a little fortunate, but also just, my life was upended as much as anybody else's, and had to live at home for 11 months in Baltimore with my family, which was, a blessing in a way to have that time with them that I wouldn't otherwise have had, but also definitely felt a little stifling, as I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this year, but yeah.
Yeah, it felt like something was missing, which something was. I mean, theater,
absolutely.
live theater. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's huge. So this is a question that I had at the end, but since you mentioned it, what projects have you been doing kept you busy during the time? Because one of my questions at the end is, do you have anything to promote? Do you have anything to talk about, whether theater related or not?
Oh, well, I did a independent feature film back in, I think it's almost been a full year since we shot it, back in October, November of 2020.
Wow.
And it is being, it's been in post-production for close to a year. And I think they're shooting for a June release. So look out for a film called Beyond the Lake coming out potentially in June, playing a character who is a musician who's struggling with his identity, with love, and with his music. And so I'm not 100% sure where you will be able to watch it. I think we're shooting for a distribution deal with Amazon. So that would be my best guess. But, if in June you're like, what did David say? A movie called Beyond the Lake, and you search it on Google, you'll probably find it. So, yeah.
You can find anything easily if you just go to Google and be like, okay, search. And
yeah, exactly.
When you put the quotation marks around, that's always
right.
It's
always right. That's a good tip. The quotation marks. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So did you get to sing in that?
I did. I was singing. I was playing guitar. And yeah, it was a fun experience. It was my first sort of foray into the feature film world, and hopefully I'll have more things like that in the future. But yeah, it was great.
Yes. I mean, I can see that happening. You're in the right business for more opportunities in film in the future.
That would be great.
Speaking of singing, have you always known that you wanted to be a performer in theater?
No, not at all. I am I've always sung, and I've always been, considered myself to be a singer in a way. The lore of it, according to my parents, is that I was humming tunes and singing before I ever spoke. So it's kind of always been in my blood to sing, but I didn't start singing in any sort of structured capacity until I think I was probably 14.
Wow.
And I did choir for the first time in school, and I realized that it was something that I really enjoyed. When you're a kid and you're singing louder than anyone else in music class, it's not the coolest thing in the world. So I had to overcome that sort of social anxiety surrounding this passion I had that was not you know, sports or whatever was cool at the time. Like, but then, you know, it wasn't long after I started singing in choir and stuff and singing in more structured ways that I was like, you know what, that is fine. I don't need to be cool. And then, you know, you hit that age later on where having something that's like a unique interest and a unique passion starts to become cool. So you're like, okay, this is like, you know, something that is exciting to me that is not necessarily exciting to everyone else. But that's cool and that's okay. Not that like being cool is that important in the long run at all, but at the same time, it was like, okay, like people can see this as something, as an asset and not like, oh, like that dorky, like singing boy, like whatever. So yeah, that started around. And then I didn't do, this is the longest answer of all time, but I didn't do a musical until that year too, I think. And that was also a big thing for me. I did Guys and Dolls in 8th grade, and I played Rusty Charlie. And that sort of was a surprise to me because I always played sports as a kid and I was always, I was like, whoa, why is this so much fun? Why do I love this so much? And then I just kept doing them and then realized, you know, this was actually something that I could pursue beyond an educational setting. So that was sort of when that started to snowball.
I was gonna say about the whole being cool thing, like, I mean, first of all, that's what every teenager, it seems like it's the end of the world if you're not in like that cool group. But like,
unfortunately,
if you find the right group of people who are interested in what you're interested in, you're gonna be cool. You're gonna be considered cool in that group, no matter what.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the people who love theater are completely different people than people who love sports or love video games, maybe. Or
yeah. And
I
you
mean,
know, I also found that there was more overlap than necessarily I expected too. Like, you know, like you were saying, when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, all you want is to fit in, right? That's like a human, I think that's an unavoidable human experience that we all go through. But then, like you said, once you find those people that sort of also have the same interests that you have, you can sort of fit in regardless. But then I also found like, oh hey, like I can hang out with these other people and maybe I have some interests that aren't like, you know, the thing I want to do professionally, but there's other people to fulfill those passions too. So like, I don't know, it just started to, for me, be less and less about wanting to fit in and more about just like, who can I surround myself with that's exciting to be around, and is fulfilling whatever these little, you know, things in my heart are asking me to fulfill or whatever. So
and it is helping you feel good about yourself too at the same time,
yes,
because that's important always.
yeah, absolutely.
So when you got the part in Guys and Dolls, did that give you like a ton of confidence to keep pursuing the craft? Because I mean, were you just like, okay, so I guess I can actually do this as a career, maybe?
Well, you know, it's funny because I feel like I didn't necessarily feel great about myself when I got like, I wanted to get like a big role or whatever. I was like, I can sing and like maybe I can be in this show and like get one of the big roles right away. And so I don't know if you know Guys and Dolls, Rusty Charlie's a pretty tiny role. And so I was like, oh wow. So it kind of like knocked me down a peg in confidence actually. And then I just had this urge to sort of prove myself and like work harder. And as I started to go through high school, I started to sort of find myself into some of the more leading roles, and it kind of culminated in playing Tony in West Side Story when I was a senior. And then I was like, okay, this is
exciting.
yeah. So I definitely it was sort of a slow, you know,
A buildup.
it was a build up. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that happens when when you're new to the high school environment and you're a freshman, I don't think it's normal to get the big parts right away.
Absolutely. Yeah. But you're still in your head somewhere, like wanting that. And you know how they do the crazy, like everybody, I don't know how your high school may have done it, but my high school, it would be like, okay, today's the day they're going to post the cast list at the end of the day and it's going to be up on the board and everybody's going to run to it and see what we got. And like some people get there and they're like, yes. And other people get there and they're like, oh God, my life is over. So, yeah, that's like this pretty cutthroat way to like tell people the casting or whatever at that age. But yeah, which is pretty funny in retrospect because it's just not at all how it works in real life.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I have a family friend who's younger, who's just started high school and is doing theater, and she kind of got discouraged because she's noticing like all the seniors get like the big roles.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like, don't worry, it'll come.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just be patient and enjoy your time in high school. Don't get too like hurt over maybe not getting a lead as a freshman.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's hard, but so,
right.
Yeah. So what was the first theater show you ever saw?
Oh man. The one that I go back to, the first thing I ever saw on Broadway, which is the earliest memory I have really of seeing a big professional show, was Hairspray. I think in 2002 or something. I was probably 9 years old. And I saw Hairspray on Broadway, and I'm from Baltimore, so it was like the perfect thing to see. I don't remember it well at all. And I also, funnily, a lot of people are like, oh, I saw my first big show on Broadway. And I was like, I need to be up there. I didn't have that at all. I was sort of dragged to the theater and sat through it and like, was like, okay, cool. Yeah, it didn't have that impact on me. Yeah. That was definitely something that happened to me later on. Probably the first thing I saw that had that impact on me was much later, around when I started doing theater in high school, when I saw Wicked at the Kennedy Center in DC.
Somebody told me it was going to be Wicked.
Really?
I don't know. That's just like a common, like, I saw Wicked and my mind was blown.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, which is funny because, well, maybe not, I don't know, but it's not like there's a role in that I'm like, I want to play that role. But I mean, Fiero would be fun.
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say
it'd be fun, but it's also not like, I don't know. I've heard too many interviews with guys who have played Fiero saying that it's not a very fulfilling role to play. So hot tea, maybe it is hot take, I don't know, maybe it is actually fun and these guys are just ungrateful, but yeah, whatever.
I mean, I would assume it'd be a pretty fun role. Like, Dancing Through Life is what, like a 14-minute scene?
Yeah, it's like, it's an entire play within a play.
It's such a long scene, so
yeah
you get your own little like part of the show there.
Yeah.
So you went to Connecticut College to get a BA in vocal performance and theater. Why did you choose that school, and what did you learn at that school that really like helped you move your theater career forward?
Yeah, so that's a good question because a lot of people who I'm around in this industry, a big deal for them was getting into a conservatory and doing a BFA program. And for me, one, I didn't really, at the time when I was applying to schools, and I didn't really fully grasp what the industry saw in wherever you went to school. So I kind of just was like, my family all went to liberal arts colleges. It seemed like my whole life I was kind of imagining I was going to go to a small liberal arts college and sort of get a super well-rounded whatever thing that didn't necessarily pigeonhole me in one direction. So I just sort of did that. And I, I met with some chairs of some theater departments at different schools and wound up just really connecting with this man, David Jaffe, who became a big mentor for me at Connecticut College. He was the chair of the theater department. We had a conversation, and I think he's largely the reason that I got into the school, because I didn't get great grades in high school. I was a little bit of a procrastinator, and just I just never had a school, like grades were never a huge thing for me. I never applied myself quite the way I would if I were to do it again. And so I really didn't have the grades to get into the school I went to. But I think meeting with David Jaffe and I think he's largely one of the reasons that I got into that school. But I think for me, what made that a valuable experience was actually, I hate this term because it sounds like an inflated ego term, but it's not. Like, it literally was a big fish in a small pond situation where I'm sure had I gone to Carnegie Mellon or Michigan or something, I would have not gotten a lot of roles, at least right away. Whereas at the school I went to, it was a school that they put on 3 main stage plays a year, one of which was a musical. And I just got to be I got every role I auditioned for. I just got to do it. So, I got to play Billy Bigelow. I got to play Jack in Into the Woods. I got to play Gaby and On the Town. And then I also fell in love with straight plays, in which I don't necessarily think I would have had quite the, I think I did like probably 9 straight plays that I learned so much from over the course of my college experience, and maybe 5 musicals. So had I done a BFA musical theater program, I feel like I wouldn't have necessarily found that love for non-musical plays. And I sort of feel like, although the classroom education was maybe not what it would have been at a place like at a BFA program, the actual application of whatever I may have been learning and the ability to practice it with a director and in front of an audience, I feel like was, for my journey, equally as valuable. And then I did some supplemental conservatory programs alongside it to sort of get that real rigorous classroom stuff. I did a program in London and a program, which was fantastic.
That's fun.
Yeah, that was a highlight of my education, honestly. Just
I saw Shakespeare on your resume. Was that it?
Yes, it was a program called the British American Drama Academy. And it was largely Shakespeare and like restoration comedy and like physical comedy stuff. So very, very like completely influential to my education, I feel like. But yeah, I don't know. I also feel like, and this is a little off topic, but I feel like some of the best education we get as humans and as actors is stuff that isn't related to what we're doing, right? Like, our job as an actor is to empathize and to portray people that aren't necessarily exactly who we are. So other experiences, and like there's certainly just like a psychology class and like a philosophy class I took at college that like, have things that I think about all the time when I'm preparing a role. So I don't know. I think there's more to education as an actor than just scene study classes and voice classes and movement classes and stuff. Although those are also incredible, and I'm not knocking BFA programs or anything, because I'm sure those educations are, have their, obviously they have reasons that that it's such a competitive scene, but that just wasn't the journey that I happened to have.
I mean, I'm with you there. I never wanted to go to a big school. I went to a big school for 1 year and it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be in the program. Like, I was doing communications and I wanted to be in a program that was small because, like, when you're in a big program, you do feel like a teeny little fish in
Yeah.
the ocean. And
Exactly.
being part of a class where, like, the teachers know your name, the teachers know your face, you actually get to talk to who you're working with. Like, that's just, it adds so much.
Yeah, totally. Which is, I felt the same way, and just some of the biggest mentors in my life came out of um, that exact thing of having more FaceTime and one-on-one sort of conversations and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know.
And it's interesting that you say that school, like, doesn't necessarily teach you everything, because I've been thinking about that this weekend particularly. I've been taking a lot of lifts, and
Oh
just from rideshare alone, if you talk to the drivers, I feel like you learn so much about, like, so many different people's life experiences. It
yes,
kind of helps you grow in a way as a
yeah,
person. It helps your mind grow.
totally. You become more well-rounded and just less egocentric, I feel like, and you know,
Yeah.
m- think about it more as like we're all just kind of going through this thing together on separate paths, but we're all here. So
Yes.
the more you remember that, I feel like the easier it might be to step into somebody else's skin as an actor, or empathize with someone, no matter what your profession is. But yeah.
Yes. So I want to talk about Waitress, but first, I love talking about regional theater and shows that people have done before the big show that they got.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what regional show or even college show that you participated in was your favorite and maybe taught you the most, uh, like, that helped you prepare to audition for a national tour?
Yeah. Definitely, I did a show in upstate New York called The Full Monty. I don't know.
I've
Wasn't It wasn't a show that I ever knew anything about. It wasn't, I literally went to this audition um thinking, and sometimes it's the things you're the least prepared for that you wind up getting. But I went to this audition thinking it was like a Monty Python like comedy thing, because I just saw Monty and I was like, oh, it's probably
oh,
going to be a Monty Python type thing. And then little did I know, after I got the call back, they were like, okay, now that we're a little more serious about you, we want to make sure that you're okay, like being fully naked on stage. And I was like,
excuse
what is this?
me.
What is this show? Um, and so I, looked into it a little more, and it turns out it's a show about uh, a Buffalo, New York working class people who wind up putting on a like strip show. Um, and it's sort of a self-acceptance and uh, standard of beauty recognition show that actually has a really beautiful message in the context of a comedy about rounding up six sort of off the beaten path guys who are all trying to make a buck, putting on a one night event striptease. So that show, not only was it and just incredibly fun to be in, but it also sort of, you know, I played a character that was like suicidal and had to overcome some deep insecurities and like um realize it was like a journey of him finding his identity with his sexual orientation, and also um just the shyest guy in the room, like making friends and having a community. So it was a fun um exploration of sort of that kind of stuff too. um and I definitely think that experience informs things that I brought to Dr. Pomatter too.
Helps
But
acting.
yeah, exactly. And it also was just like, you know what? When you have to strip down to nothing on stage, you sort of like experience the ultimate vulnerability. And the way the show is designed, you hardly see anything because it's, you know, it's kind of the last second of the show and there's a blackout involved, so you see like silhouettes. But you know, there's bits of the show where you're wearing very little on stage, and it's sort of this moment of like, okay, well, like I'm bearing myself to these people, and this is like an exercise in acceptance of myself and confidence and all that sort of stuff. So definitely was a show I feel like if anybody has the chance to do it, it's scary, but it's worth it. Yeah.
So I have to ask, what people are so hung up on like Broadway, like Broadway's the biggest theater you can get to, etc. But regional theater is so special. And I feel like regional theater is just as good as Broadway at the end of the day. What do you think makes regional theater special?
Well, I think what makes it so special is that you're bringing kind of big shows to smaller communities, and you know, I've been in a number of regional shows that have people in them with Broadway on their resumes, and so a lot of people, I feel like, don't realize that it's a very competitive scene to get into these regional contracts, and you get to sort of act opposite or be on stage opposite some people who have had some very fancy careers. And so I've learned so much from watching people that I've been in things with who are, you know, have cut their teeth on Broadway either a year ago or like 25 years ago. Yeah. And it's sort of, you know, the more of those sorts of situations you can put yourself in, the more you can learn from how they conduct themselves in a rehearsal room, how they might, you know, take notes, how they, you know, talk to everyone in the company and try and make it a warm and welcoming environment, and don't, you know, there's no hierarchical stuff and all that kind of thing. I just feel like is very important to learn. And yeah, also it's just so much talent all over the country too. And some of the like smaller roles will be played by locals. So you get to come into some other town and see like, oh, these are some of the like local talents who just decided they didn't maybe want to move to New York, but they're doing this in you know, Albany, which is where Capitol Repertory Theater is that I did for Monty. So yeah, I don't know. It's a special thing, and it's also just nice to be like have that break from New York and have that sort of separation and be like, well, I'm going to live in this small town for 3 months, and you know, let's see what this is like. What's their local coffee shop like? What's their grocery store that they go to? What, you know, bars do they like to go to at night? Where's there some live music to see? And you kind of get an appreciation for parts of the country that aren't New York City, where everybody in this industry is like, I gotta be there. But there's so many other cool places. So yeah.
I mean, and it's so important to bring theater to places that maybe don't get as much theater.
Yes.
Because I mean, when you bring theater to those people, you never know who it's affecting and like who is gonna see a show and it's gonna change their life forever, and they're gonna be like, okay, I love theater now. Like I'm a huge theater fan, and like go on YouTube, look up all theater videos, and get really into it.
Absolutely, yeah. And they might, you know, never have had the opportunity to make it to New York to see something, but you can bring it to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Waitress, did you all started the tour before the pandemic? Yeah.
Yes. Actually, it was not the short. Like we were running for I think 5 or 6 months before the pandemic. So I think we'd done something like 170 shows.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, the pandemic. So because we opened in November and we ran through half of March. So I guess November, February, March, almost 5 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. We definitely had our rhythm, and we were definitely feeling like we had been doing the show for a while before it was shut down. But yeah, it's interesting to come back to it with some fresh faces and some new perspectives. So yeah.
I was gonna ask, what was your audition process like for the show?
I had I saw that Waitress they were recasting a tour of Waitress, and I emailed my agent and I was like, hey, like, let's make sure that we go in for this, because I had seen the show a couple times and just felt like it was something that I would love to be a part of. And sure enough, I got an audition and I went in for the casting agency. None of the actual creative team was there the first audition, but I went in for them, and I'm pretty sure I had the Pomatter packet already. And, I did a couple of the scenes and sang through, like, I think Bad Idea the first day. And then they were like, great, that's all for today. And then I got an email a week later and came back in, and Susanna, our tour director, was there and did everything for her and got a little further into the packet. And then I think there was one more callback with a bigger group of people in the room, did the whole packet. And then there was a final callback where there was just me and one other guy, and then a bunch of women there for Jenna.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, okay, it's down to the wire here. I had a rehearsal for another thing I was doing that morning. I was fighting a cold. I had to like rush over to this place, and like I was like, oh God, I'm like not even ready for this callback right now. No, it was the most stressful day ever. And then they held on to me for the whole time, and this other guy got released. So I was like, does this mean I got it? Because I was doing reads with, I think I read with maybe 5 different Jennas. So I was like, this is either a good sign or they're letting the guy who got it go and just wasting my time.
Who knows?
Yeah. So sure enough, I got a call from my agent about 3 weeks later, and I just picked up the phone, and on the other side of the line, I just heard the sugar, butter, flour, and I was like, it was very congratulatory, and it was a very cool phone call to get. So,
what was your initial reaction? Because like I'm sure that's exciting, and going in, you're like, okay, maybe there's like a 20% chance that I'm gonna get this, and you're not trying
exactly, yeah. No matter how right you feel like you are for something, it almost makes you feel less likely that it's going to happen. So I tried very hard not to put pressure on it and everything, but when I got that phone call, I was very, very happy. Yeah.
Just beside yourself.
Yeah. I think I hung up the phone and just started crying. I was like, because it was both crying of like, oh my God, this is great, and crying of like, oh my God, like I have to leave New York for 9 months. But it was a very cool experience, and then it wound up being life-changing is a little bit of a drastic thing to say, but it was a brand new, it was a brand new
on tour
thing. Yeah. So yeah. And then we were out, and
the pandemic
COVID struck us down in our pride. Yeah.
What was your reaction when you saw, was it overwhelming to see the tour schedule? Because the tour for this national tour of Waitress is different than the past national tour of Waitress. You don't get long sit downs anywhere.
Yeah, it's a lot. And we realized that, especially because we started the tour with some cushy sit downs, and then once the bus started being the thing and not planes, and we were out of Canada and all that stuff, we were doing quicker turnarounds. It was like, this is tough.
Exhausting.
And yeah, it's tough, and it's draining just to, be living out of luggage and packing and unpacking and trying to keep everything organized and finding times to do laundry and things that are just things that you don't think about until you're experiencing it. It's draining,
I
but
can
it's
imagine.
yeah, but it's fulfilling, like it's kind of similarly to the regional answer, the question that we were talking about earlier. Like, there's something very special about bringing a show like Waitress, which is about these small towns and about these communities that are, where mundanity is kind of the through line. And bringing this show to them and sort of showing them that they can maybe dream bigger.
Mm-hmm.
It's something very special, and I feel like perfect about that. Like, this show needs to be in these types of places. And so, although it's it's very fun to play the bigger touring houses and some of the more exciting cities, which we get to do now and again. That's always very special and fun. But it's also special to bring it to the smaller towns.
Yeah.
And some of the smaller towns have some of the most beautiful, like, historic houses too, like these crazy theaters that are in these seemingly middle of nowhere type towns, and you're like, wow, cool, I'm playing in, you can make a list of all the theaters you've played in the country, and the list gets very big very quickly.
I mean, I'm from Texas, and I was looking at the tour schedule to see like where you all are going on tour, and it overwhelmed me. I was like, my
Oh
seat
yeah.
would be a mess, but I was like,
yeah.
it's so cool that you all are playing in the little towns, because I'm sure that inspires the creatives who come to see the show too, and they're like, do we have enough theaters here? Maybe I should open another theater.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, you all are gonna make theater more popular in these small towns and bring talent to these small towns that, like, they're gonna be like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, we're lucky we get to witness this.
Yeah, it's fun. It feels like something that you're part of something special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is the rehearsal process like for the show? Like, pre-pandemic, you all rehearsed as a cast too, because I guess because it was you all got cast at the same time, and then now
Exactly.
you're getting another chance to all rehearse as a cast again. Is it create a special bond?
It does. And there's enough people. I'd say it's probably about 1/3 of the cast is returning, and maybe 2/3 is new. So, but there was also something very special this time around. Last time when we were rehearsing, Diane Paulus was doing Jagged Little Pill, and Sarah was touring one of her doing a
Like album.
a pop tour, and to have our production and the Broadway production kind of being remounted at the same time, we got a lot more sort of attention from some of the original creatives, and I was lucky enough to be a part of some rehearsals with the 3 waitresses in New York. It was kind of the 4 of us had some rehearsals before leaving New York, because there's a new Jenna, and so the team wanted to sort of give her a little head start before being with the full company. So it was just me and Kennedy and Gabby, who played Dawn and Becky, and Giselle, who's our new Jenna. And we got to do some earlier rehearsals and have some time with Sarah, which was really, really special. And that sort of thing never happened last time around. So, yeah, because everyone was so busy with other things. But since Waitress is back in people's minds in a fresh new way. And they were down the street at the Barrymore, and we were rehearsing on 8th Avenue, and people could just pop in and say hi. So that was a special thing for this time around. And now we're here, and it's a whirlwind because it's a shorter rehearsal process than last time, because they thought since most people were, or they thought since there were going to be returning people, they wouldn't need as much time. Turns out a lot of people are new, and it's a whirlwind, but it's fun.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah, a lot of hard work. I got a lot of my hard work out of the way in New York, so I've had a little bit of extra time to relax. But
It's important.
yeah, but there, you know, the rehearsals are long days, and to watch it sort of having a new life, and to watch sort of some of the new things that they've discovered from the Broadway company. And it's kind of a rebirth of Waitress. There's some changes and some new sort of elements of storytelling that are really exciting. And yeah, so I think if you see it, if anybody listening has seen it before, I think if you see it this time, it's a fresh take. So I think it'll be exciting.
And that's the thing people love about theater, and why, like, I know there's huge Waitress fans out there who travel to like every city to see the show.
Yeah.
Because like they want to see multiple people play multiple roles. Like that's what's so
Yeah.
special about theater. It's never the same show. Even if you're
Absolutely.
seeing the same show like 2 nights in a row, it's never exactly the same.
Yeah.
Special.
Yeah.
So how do you make Pomatter your own? And has your portrayal of him changed at all in the rehearsal room from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic? Because there's been some life experiences during the pandemic that I'm sure have changed the way you think and your brain thinks.
Yeah. I definitely, that is a good question, because I think partially my own life experiences, and partially this kind of new direction that they're pushing for the story to be this time. There are some definite changes to the way in which a lot of us are trying to tell this story. And this is my first time ever revisiting a role, especially a role that I had done over 100 times. So that's both a challenge, and also, you know, there's things about it that are easy and there's things about it that are hard, because the easy part is, okay, I know the words, I know the songs, you know, I know the staging for the most part. There's a few little changes, but like easy. The hard part is exactly what you're saying. Like, I want to bring new things to this. I don't want it to just be like everything that I did before. Plus, I have a new scene partner. So that's fun and exciting, and we're getting to know each other and have that sort of freshness to the scenes that I'm a part of. And yeah, I think for me, the important thing about Dr. Pomatter is to, in order to play this man who is a bit of like a homewrecker on the page, I've really had to, you know, for me to do my job, I obviously, or maybe not obviously, but I have to sort of make a world in which this is a play about him, right? Like, I have to be like, I have to have enough of a context for what he's going through in order to make these decisions that he's making. So obviously it's about Jenna, and Pomatter is in service of her story, but I have to think like, oh, maybe like if it was about Pomatter and Jenna's in service of his story, then, you know, why would he be cheating on his wife? Why would he be upset to being like, why would, you know, moving out of Connecticut and into this small town be so exciting to him? And So that's a fun thing that I've gone even further into this time around, to think about, these, whenever you're playing a character, I think you never want to look at them as a bad person. In order to understand exactly what they're doing, you have to think like, okay, these are perfectly reasonable decisions to be making, and like, people are complicated and life is hard, but these are things that, given the circumstances, anybody might do. So
I mean, I was gonna say, even when people play the villains in shows, like maybe like, for example, like Aladdin, like I'm sure they're like, okay, I have to like side with this character and think about why this character is doing these bad things, even though I don't agree with them in real life. Like I have to be this character and understand.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So
that's where the life experience that you were talking about, like comes into hand, getting more of that and talking to people and the other classes that you can take in school.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So, because it's an interesting thing, right? I mean, I think most audiences are kind of rooting for these two
Yeah.
in spite of it being so messy.
Yep.
And it being so, because we see Earl and we see that he's, not helping Jenna's journey at all. In fact, he's hindering it. So we're like, okay, and we don't really see Francine, Pomatter's wife, until a tiny moment at the end of the show. But so people are probably rooting for him too, even though they're not thinking too hard about, oh wow, he's cheating. And then maybe later on they're like, why was I rooting for a guy who was like knowingly cheating on his wife and risking his profession and all these things? But hopefully we can portray it in a way that you understand why these people are making these decisions, and that like things are complicated sometimes and there's more to it than meets the eye a lot of the time. So
I mean, I think that you're definitely right. People are rooting for the Jenna Pomatter relationship.
yeah.
It's always a plus when you have people like truly like, oh, they should get together by intermission, because I mean, I feel like that's one of the things that attracts these super fans to the show is the chemistry between the two leads.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite song and scene in the show?
Oh, I think it's the least like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I really, really love the pantry "You Matter to Me" scene, because I think I get to show a different side of Pomatter and sort of go a little deeper into his psyche and everything. And then "You Matter to Me" I think is just a beautiful song that is so simple. I mean, it's in the lyrics, it's simple and plain, but also it's like this kind of like eye-opening moment that people can share. Somebody can say like "I love you" and it can mean 100,000 different things, but if you say you like "You matter," I feel like is such a like beautiful sentiment, because like regardless of whatever shortcomings you have or whatever decisions you've made that are terrible or whatever, like your actual being is important to me, is such like a simple thing to say, but I feel like more effective than a lot of things that we use in our day-to-day lives. And it's just fun to sing.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a beautiful song. The lyrics
Yeah.
of all the songs in the show are genius, as we all know.
Yeah.
So, why do you think theater fans love Waitress so much? And why do you think, I mean, I think there's something to say about it getting revived now on Broadway after like, it closed for like just a couple months, and people were so upset that Broadway was
like, it's back.
Okay, we'll bring it back.
Yeah. Oh man, I think there's so much. One, I mean, the music is so accessible. It's such, it's so easy to listen to, and it's so hummable, and people leave the theater remembering She Used to Be Mine and Bad Idea and all these different songs. So I feel like that it's so accessible is definitely a thing. But also I think it's so human. I feel like so many other shows that exist, and they can be wonderful in their own way, but like Waitress is so grounded in reality, and it's so relatable, no matter who you are, no matter what your life experience is. I feel like these characters are so three-dimensional and so kind of complicated and gray, and that's always my favorite thing. Like good and bad is boring to me. Like somebody who's real and complicated and messy. Like we always use the word messy. Yeah, that's the exciting stuff to watch, I feel like. So, and I feel like Waitress does a beautiful job of putting real people on stage, which I feel like is, you can't get enough of it. Also, I don't know, at this point I feel like, at least in the Broadway community, it's just exciting to see who's playing these roles now and who's I think people will never get tired of seeing a new Jenna or a new Dawn or a new Ogie or Pomatter or whatever. So
I mean, I know a bunch of people who Waitress is their favorite show, and they're like, I have like when someone new is announced in the cast, like I don't care if I've heard their names before, if I know who they are, if they're new to the touring scene or the Broadway scene, I want to see them because the Waitress casting team knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that's so true too. Just like, I don't know, they always find people who fit these roles. And a lot of them are very specific. Like the roles are they're not kind of archetypal kind of people. They're people who it's important to have someone who sort of you can really see in that particular role. I don't know, like you look around and I was watching Rehearsal yesterday, seeing that I wasn't in, I was like, how did we find these people? They're like perfect for these roles. So
it's crazy what like casting directors do and the magic that the casting directors create during like, you're like, wait, where did all this talent around me come from?
Yeah.
It's
amazing. Yeah.
So we kind of talked about the tour schedule before. I want to know, what's one thing that you learned from touring pre-pandemic that was like, oh, I never thought that I would learn this from being on the road touring the country?
That is a good question. I learned how much empty space there is in this country. I think just like being on the bus and driving for hours and hours and like in and out of sleep or whatever, and you wake up and you're just like, wow, there's more farmland or whatever. Like,
yes,
there's grass there too. Wow, cows. Okay,
grass.
Like, yeah, is that a horse? So I feel like it's like there's just an unbelievable amount of vast space in this country that you kind of have to see to believe. But yeah, that's kind of the fun thing about the bus in a way, is like just watching the country go by and like in and out of a movie or in and out of napping or something. You're just like, okay, where are we now? All right, well,
what city? Checks phone. Do I have
checks
service?
the phone. Yeah, do I have service? Like, let me open Google Maps and see where my like dot is in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty fun.
How would you convince people to come see the Waitress tour, whether they live in a city that Waitress is coming to or they live within like driving distance to a city that Waitress is coming to?
I would definitely say it kind of has a little of everything, which I feel like is what makes it so accessible. It has depth and incredibly empathizable human experiences. It's funny. It's, it does the plot. The writing is so good. It takes you on this journey of laughter and tears and just wanting to know what's going to happen, but also just watching people go through life in maybe a way that you might be able to relate to. You know, it's not Wicked, it's not the Book of Mormon, it's not Hamilton. It's just contemporary people who anyone can relate to. Yeah. So I think I would just say come to laugh and cry and everything in between.
And to please your ears with the wonderful singing. Absolutely.
And just Sarah Bareilles is one of the greats of our time in terms of songwriting. And yeah, it's incredible what she created.
Yes, definitely true. So I'm sure this is one of like the, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm playing this roles in your life. But do you have a dream role that you absolutely like is on your bucket list? You're like, I need to audition for it at some point in my life, whether the show's open or not?
That's a good question. I know this is not the answer you want, but I just want to be like involved in a project from the ground up and create a role with like the writing team. That's kind of the ideal dream for me. But as far as something that's already been written, you'd think I would just have one off the top of my head that I would, but I don't. I mean, I played Pippin in a summer stock once when I was younger, and I would love to do that in a more professional capacity, because I've learned a lot between when I was 18 and now. Yeah, Pippin would probably be one of those for me.
And I love working on a show from the ground up because there's nothing like that.
So. Yeah, I mean, that to me is the jackpot, right? Because you get to bring yourself to it, and everyone who may play that role after you is looking to what you created. Yeah. And hopefully bringing themselves to it. Like that's something that, you know, when I saw Waitress, I saw Drew, the original Pomatter, and I loved what he did. And, you know, great, what's that quote or something? Great artists steal or something like that. Like I've definitely influenced me in terms of creating my version of the role, but I'm, you know, I like to think that I bring something new to it. But to be that person that everyone looks to when they are playing this role, to sort of see what the blueprint is for what they're looking for, even in the audition. Like when I was auditioning for the role, I watched Drew because I was like, you know, this is at least an expectation that they have, that there is going to be elements of this man that were created by Drew. So to be the Drew of something in the future, I feel like would be absolutely like magical.
Well, let's manifest that.
Yes, please.
I feel like that can definitely happen in the future. So manifesting, putting it out in the world. It's gonna happen.
Well, Becca said it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You hear that, universe? It's gonna happen. Great.
It's gonna happen.
Perfect.
So the theater industry is such I mean, I feel like it can make you a really like, it can like kind of destroy self-confidence at sometimes. How do you work on self-confidence in the industry?
There's something that exactly happens like you just said, and I feel like to fight, like in order for me to go into an audition or to go, you know, into the first rehearsal of something in front of a new group of people and be like, okay, I'm gonna bring myself to this, you have to have a certain level of like I'm the best person for this job, whether it's true or not, whether you're, and I don't think of it as like egotistical at all. It's
Like,
literally, you literally just have to come in with that attitude, because otherwise you can't do the job. You have to consider yourself to be the best person for this job right now. And so when you're caught in situations where it doesn't feel that way, or some audition goes terribly or whatever, there's often times where it just takes a few days to get over. Like, I had an audition once for a production of Grease, and I'm not, which is not a show that I particularly care about, but it was a show, but I still was in an audition, and I wanted to do my best, and I wanted to show the creative team that I was good at what I do. Sure enough, I'm called back for Kinky, and we're doing like this crazy choreography that I could not keep up with. And I was like, the whole time I was thinking, should I just leave? Like, I am underperforming this choreography 100 times over. And it took me days to get over that. And I was like, should I be in more dance classes? Should I be? And then I was like, you know what? Dance has never been the focus of what I bring into a room. So I'm just gonna be okay and just be like, okay, and work on the things that I feel like I should work on. So I don't know. There's always there's so many ups and downs and peaks and valleys, and it's just, to feel 100% confident all the time is impossible. You see interviews with A-list celebrities who have like dream careers and still say they are nervous at auditions, or they have moments of feeling like they are imposter syndrome or whatever. I'm not right for this role, or how am I being directed by Spielberg right now or something? I'm not right for this room. So it's never something that goes away. And I feel like it's just a constant self-exploration and discovery and sort of inner monologue that you have to sort of combat that. But the moments of sort of landing those roles, or feeling those confident moments, or getting that laugh in a show, or making that person, feel something, are so worth that battle. That it's just it's a constant exercise to wake up and choose to do this, because it's hard. And there's that classic like thing of, if you can see yourself doing anything else, then do that. But I've always just kind of been like, the type of person that kind of like, almost those moments make me more like determined rather than less determined. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I sucked in that audition or whatever, but next time I see that person, I'm gonna blow their mind. Yeah. And obviously, sometimes you never see that person again, or sometimes you go back and you fall on your face. But like, I don't know. It's the choice to keep going that is so important.
And it probably helps in the future to, like, I mean, as you use the word like, it's hard to combat it sometimes, but it probably helps to have those experiences, those tough experiences where you're like, okay, maybe I'm not like the most confident in this audition right at this present moment, but I'm gonna work on it and work on my present self and work on my future self at the same time, and bring more confidence to that next audition.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a constant growth too. Like, some days I wake up and I feel, and we're all battling our own inner demons and our own mental health and everything. And that's becoming more and more apparent as people become more comfortable opening up about themselves. But, there's so many days I wake up feeling like I just can't face it right now. But those are the days where it's most important to like
Yeah.
get going and do something, whether it's big or small, to like remind yourself of what you can bring to something that no one else can. Because at the end of the day, if you're chosen for something or not, but whatever it is that you wind up being chosen for or not chosen for, you, as whoever you are, have something that literally no one else has, and that's just a fact. Like your experience, what you look like, how you sound, whatever your set of skills is something that literally no one else has. So keeping that in mind, I feel like has been crucial for me. Like whether I think I'm perfect for this or not, like whatever I'm going to do with it, it would be impossible for anyone else to do with it. So
Yeah.
may as well bring everything
You're
to the room.
unique. Even if
Yeah.
you feel like you're unique, there's something unique
Yeah.
about everyone.
Absolutely. And there's all those classic stories of like, well, I showed up to this audition and then there were 45 other people in the room who looked exactly like me. Like, no, maybe they were like similar characteristics, but they have infinitely different experiences behind them, and whatever you can bring into the room is completely different, no matter what you think. So just remembering that has been crucial for me in my journey or whatever.
That's a really good audition tip for people
Yeah.
going into auditions.
Yeah. Even if somebody goes in before you and has your same color hair, eyes, this their same height or whatever, like they may have had cereal for breakfast and you had eggs and pancakes. And even that is different. Like, and that is a tiny example. Yeah.
Yes. So what are you most looking forward to when the Waitress store officially reopens and you all get to perform in front of your first live audience since it shut down in March?
Oh my God. I think it's just gonna feel surreal to step back out on the stage with the green and yellow tiles. I think I'm just most looking forward to affecting people again with this show. I think it's just a special show to be a part of, and just to see people's faces during this sort of curtain call music or whatever. And just to see the faces of people being changed by live theater again, I think it's literally going to be surreal. So yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited to get back on the horse.
I mean, you're gonna see a ton of like people like bawling their eyes out because they're so happy to be back at a theater show.
Yeah, and it's exciting to be a part of the resurgence of theater, and perhaps some people's first play they've been to in 20 months or whatever it may be.
Or someone's first show ever.
Absolutely. That's totally true. Someone's first show ever, or, on the opposite side of that coin, you could always be someone's last show ever, which is, also a beautiful thing. So
Sure, affect them in tons of different ways.
Yeah.
So where can people follow you on social media to keep up with what you're doing and to keep up with where the Waitress store is going and what you do in the future?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram, and it's just at David Socolar, my first and last name. I have a TikTok, but it's very dormant.
Love it.
But yeah, sometimes I'll sing a little thing on there. But yeah, Instagram's my go-to. So that's where I'm going to be sort of cataloging things across the tour. And obviously Waitress tour, what is it called? Waitress on Tour, I think, is the tour. You can follow Waitress Musical for all things Waitress, and then for our particular production, it's Waitress on Tour. and there'll be takeovers and different fun things, I'm sure, on there as we travel around.
I love that you all have your own social for the tour, because like I think that makes it a little more like it makes it easier for people who get to see the tour to follow essentially the tour and the tour guide.
Yeah.
And learn more about who they're seeing on stage.
Exactly.
It's
yeah,
so exciting.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's fun for us to sort of think of goofy things to do on there or whatever it may be. I don't know who's going to be in charge of it exactly, but I'm sure everybody's face will be on there at some point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it was so nice talking to you and learning more about your theater career. And
yeah,
I'm so excited for you all to hit the road again and for people to get to experience live theater and Waitress.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me. This was a pleasure. It's fun to talk.
Thanks for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!